Resident Evil has been around for a long time. With Resident Evil 2, Capcom took a bold risk that paid off. Will the next Resident Evil game be forced to recreate it? Welcome back to the world of survival horror. When starting a game series, your protagonist is usually the star of the show. Think Lara Croft, Duke Nukem, Nathan Drake, Sam Fisher. Even when you mention Chris Redfield, you know exactly which game series he belongs to. In most cases, you can keep your protagonist going as long as there is demand for it. But Resident Evil has a small problem. You see, they dated their games. And by this I mean the first game is set in July of 1998, and each subsequent games move the timeline forward. Doing this means that the protagonists age, and with each new game, they get a little bit older. Granted, it adds a little bit to the immersion, but there's going to come a point where it's just too silly to have the same characters wheeled out to combat the latest threat. I mean, do you really want to see a 70-year-old Leon trying to remember his punchline to one of his wisecracks?
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
With Resident Evil 2, they took a bold leap. They didn't have any returning characters. It's quite unheard of, especially for the time. With the success of Resident Evil, fans would have liked to have seen what happened to the remaining STARS team from the first game. It's risky not to include them, but it worked well. Leon and Claire have become massive hits with the fans, and Leon taking over the mantle as the poster boy for the franchise.
Well, look who it is. The BSAA's golden boy and Dr. High Hopes.
Since Resident Evil 2, Capcom haven't dared to take that risk again. They came very close with Resident Evil 7, giving us a new protagonist in Ethan.
Welcome to the family, son.
But they wouldn't risk it, and they had to have an established character in the game, and so we had Chris show up towards the end. Remakes are a good way to keep the franchise alive, bring in new fans, update older games to fit with modern controls, and correct some outdated social prejudices. But yes, Claire, I'm looking at you.
My apologies, but I cannot let you escape now. Oh, Alfred, you cross-dressing.
They're also a good opportunity to keep your established characters alive, and looking better than ever. Jill and Carlos are prime examples of this in the Resident Evil 3 remake. However, if the series is to move forward, we'll need to see some new characters introduced. Resident Evil Village takes place in 2021, so as of the last game, Chris is 48, Barry is 61, Leon is 44, Claire is 42, Jill is 47, and Rebecca is 41. Out of the mainline characters, it's unlikely we're going to see Barry in another future game, or at least not in some running around capacity. Rebecca and Claire, although possible to see them again, their character arcs have taken them away from fighting bioweapons directly, and admittedly they have been brought back into the games and the TV shows, such as Revelations 2 and the CGI films and that. But again, there's only so many times they can do this, without it becoming predictable. Now, Leon, Chris, Jill have a couple of games left in them, true, but now is a perfect opportunity to start to introduce fresh faces to carry the franchise forward. They also need to keep them alive. Piers was a great replacement for Chris. He was young, fit, and able to lead the next generation of the BSAA operatives.
If you hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths.
Shut up. Do you even care about our mission anymore?
Chris could have moved into a director's role so that he would still have a presence within the franchise, and, well, this kind of happened. Ethan was pretty much a blank slate in Resident Evil 7, and this was because of the move to first person. Developers wanted you, the player, to imprint your own personality into Ethan, which didn't go down too well. More of his own personality was fleshed out in Resident Evil 8, but they painted themselves into a corner and, well, ruining Resident Evil 7 in the process. But that's a video for another time. In the end, there was only really one option left for him. So where do they go from here? One option is the remakes, as I discussed earlier, but another is to fill in the gaps, much like the Revelations games do. This gives us a chance to see the established characters in their prime and not complaining about their back when they've been repeatedly slammed into metal consoles or concrete walls. But a third option, if they don't want to take the risk of bringing in brand new characters, like they did with Resident Evil 2, is to bring back some of the less used characters. Jake and Sarah's mission in Resident Evil 6 was one of the best scenarios, and as of 2021, Jake is 29 years old, with Sherry being 35. They bounced off of each other really well, and they could carry an entire game themselves. Helena Harper, Sheva Alomar, or even Josh Stone could make a return, although I think they would be better suited in a supporting role. I'd also like to see Carlos or Billy make a return at some point. Remakes, Carlos was an exceptional character, and I believe there is many more stories that could be told with him. But I could be wrong. Capcom might want to squeeze every last ounce out of Chris and Leon before they finally retire at the grand old age of 80 or 90 years old. But in order to keep the franchise fresh for both newcomers and veterans of the series, I do think they need to start handing over the reins to some fresh blood, and there's only so many times they can all get infected and survive when many others don't. How they leave the series could be another great question. Would you like to see them killed off or just plain retire? Or in Chris's case, would you like to see him become the new Wesker of the franchise? Well, I might have a theory on that already, and to find out, you need to watch the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you survivors next time. And correct some outdated social prejudices. Prejudices.